Test. I'll call the November 21st, 2022 meeting of the Planning Commission to order. We'll have a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance first. Please note for the record that, well, actually, you got to do the roll. You haven't done the roll call yet. Okay. Can I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Townsend, Ms. Butler, Mr. Moyer, Ms. Pearson, Ms. Thomas,
Here.
Mr. La Rochelle,
Here.
Dr. Schmidt,
Here.
Mr. Davis,
Here.
Mr. Bennett,
Here.
Mr. Tiller,
Here.
Ms. Rose.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Next will be the approval of the August 15, 2022 meeting minutes. Are there any comments, corrections?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the meeting minutes as published.
Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Let's see. Mr. LaRochelle,
Aye.
Mr. Bennett,
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Tiller,
Abstain.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Ms. Pearson,
Aye.
Ms. Thomas,
Aye.
Ms. Rose.
Abstain.
Okay.
Thank you. Has anyone signed up for the citizens' comment period? Am I? Okay. All right, since there are no citizens signed up to comment, we have no presentations or unfinished business, so we'll move right into the public hearing. So I will turn it over to the public hearing chair.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we have one public hearing before us. Each has been properly advertised for tonight's consideration. Let me take a moment to review the procedures that we will use for tonight's hearing. Number one, each public hearing will be considered separately. Two, staff will give a brief overview of the hearing that is before us. The sponsor of the case will be given an opportunity to make a presentation. Commissioners will be given an opportunity to ask questions of the sponsors or staff for clarification purposes. Number five, I will then open the citizens' comment portion of the public hearing and receive your comments. Sign-up sheets are located on the desk by the front doors of the administration building. I ask the following. You come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, address your comments to the commission, and limit your comments to 3 minutes when the timer sounds. Please conclude your remarks. Please note that the commission members will not answer your questions during the citizens' comment period, but will certainly take those questions and comments into consideration during the deliberation period of the public hearing. So, let's see. Where's that at? So I open up the one public hearing we have tonight, the application PUD-02-22, Farms of New Kent PUD amendment.
Thank you. This evening you have an application from Kent Farms Holding Company, LLC, to amend the Farms of New Kent planned unit development. Before you, you have Resolution PC-2222. What this resolution does is propose amendment to Section 21 of the PUD. As the Farms of New Kent development is progressing, the developers are now focusing more of their attention on the commercial sections of the planned unit development. And as they're talking to potential businesses to occupy those areas, they have come to the conclusion that several changes in the PUD is needed. The first change is to Section L, 21L, which removes the requirement. Well, all of the changes deals with commercial signage. The first proposed change is to Section 21L, which proposes to remove the requirement that a commercial sign has no more than 3 colors. Staff believes that this is an unnecessary requirement. There's not too many businesses that have logos that are 3 colors or less. Our county logo wouldn't even qualify for signage in this development. The second requirement that is being proposed is to Section 21Q, where it states that no logo, brand name, or sign which is legible from adjacent public roads may be placed on fuel dispensing pumps or pump islands or drive-in windows, menu boards, or premises or on-premises directional signage or other similar structures. Staff also believes that this requirement is unnecessary. It's commonplace today for most convenience stores that carry a certain name of gas, a certain brand of gas. It's a requirement that their logo goes on there, whether it's Mobil 1, Exxon, BP, or who you name it. And it's also customary for drive-in menu boards to have a logo on there as well. We don't believe that by removing this requirement would detract from the commercial section of the Farms of New Kent. And the third and final change that's being requested is to allow for exceptions to general commercial sign requirements by the issuance of a conditional use permit. So if any of the conditions in this section did not apply or could not apply to a particular business, that business would have the opportunity to apply for a conditional use permit and request exceptions to the standards within this section of the PUD. So therefore, the Planning Commission and the board could consider special exceptions on a case-by-case basis. Throughout this ordinance, actually, there's opportunities for modifications to the requirements, residential setback, building height, yard requirements, landscaping buffer requirements. There's language in this PUD for modifications to that, and we're asking that similar modifications be allowed to the commercial standards. Although current language in the PUD just grants that authority to the zoning administrator. We're asking that we allow modifications, but through the use of a use permit, which is a process I like better because not only does it give the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors a chance to consider such requests, but it also includes a public process through the public hearing process, so the community is informed of those proposed modifications as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Rodney, for section L and Q, I mean, was there any specific intent behind those two? I can see why they would want to change them because they do seem somewhat overly restrictive. But was there a thought that you really wanted to clamp down on the signage as far as what can be seen from the road to make sure that it was very, very, very uniform and not particularly glaring? Is that the case?
I can only guess to that because these standards were put in almost 20 years ago.
A long time ago. Okay.
But to me, it seems like that the county was kind of going for the Williamsburg feel, to be honest. Yeah. Where, in city of Williamsburg, there are similar standards actually in their code now, and that's why I bring up the Williamsburg feel. Yeah. But I think that's a different aesthetics that Colonial Williamsburg is trying to capture there than what we're trying to capture here. Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I have a question for Mr. Hathaway. Mr. Hathaway, I really don't have issue to either the elimination of L or Q, but I do have a question regarding R. In a brief review of our current ordinances on signs, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not see where there's any exceptions that are allowed to signs, to ordinances in the sign ordinance. Is that correct?
Currently, in the sign ordinance, there is no exceptions in our general sign ordinance. That is correct.
And, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But the sign ordinance requirements are more lenient than what's in the PUD ordinance.
Okay. Next question is, since this is an ordinance, does this ride in parallel to the current sign ordinance, or is it separate?
It is separate. The way the PUD is set up, if the PUD is silent on a particular issue, then the zoning ordinance rules. But if the PUD does speak to a particular issue, then the PUD ordinance supersedes the zoning ordinance.
So would it be appropriate for me to construe that the exceptions that are, if this modification is allowed under R, that there could be an exception request for something regarding a commercial sign that falls outside of the ordinance of the sign ordinance as in our standard ordinances?
Yes, sir. That is a possibility, but also that's really the intent of a PUD. That's why a developer would apply for a PUD to have special zoning consideration. So, but to your point, yes, there is that possibility that someone could come in and request something that exceeds the requirement of our signage requirements in our regular zoning ordinance. But again, they would have to go through that public hearing process, and you and the board would have the ability to consider that.
Give me time to think of that. Thank you.
Okay, we will now open up the citizens' comment portion. Is there anyone signed up for a comment on this public hearing? No one is signed up for comment, so I now close the public hearing, and I now give it back to you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion, comments? Yes?
Mr. Hathaway.
Yes.
So I'm assuming the Kent Farms Holding Company, they requested to open this up?
That's correct. They've
Just
submitted
want to
the
make sure.
application.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Thomas?
If there's no more discussion, I would like to make a motion. Please do.
Go right ahead.
Okay. In order to address, protect, and promote public convenience, necessity, general welfare, and good zoning practices in the county, I move to adopt resolution number PC-22-22 to forward application PUD-02-22 to the New King County Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation.
Yep. Yep. It is. It is.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Thomas?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Abstain?
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. LaRochelle?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Ms. Pearson?
Aye.
Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will move on. As far as I know, there is no new business. We'll move on to my report, which I really don't have anything noteworthy to discuss, but I would like to turn the floor over to Mr. Davis to do a recap of the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee.
3 minutes. Thank you. I think we might go over the record break. We already had a record breaking meeting earlier this year, so. Thank you, Madam Chair. So myself, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Moyer as well, and Chairwoman Rose is alternate or on the steering committee for the comprehensive plan update. We did meet on August 22nd was the initial meeting of that group. It's 15 members, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Hathaway? 15, I believe. I was selected as chair of that steering committee, and the co-chair or the vice chair is Charles Caro of Baronsville. And we have met that one time. Also, there's been one public informational meeting. Certainly, we EPR, as we all remember, won the bid as the vendor for the contract. They're out of Charlottesville. Mainly, we've been dealing with a gentleman by the name of Todd Gordon, who's the lead on this. So we had the first public informational meeting at the New Kent Visitor Center. It was, I thought, relatively well attended. There were certainly several commissioners that were there. I know Ms. LaRochelle was there, Mr. Bennett, I believe Mr. Moyer. Who else was there? But I think it was well attended. I think in consideration as far as what my expectations were. So, I don't know, Mr. Bennett, you were there. You can chime in as well. So if you, it certainly it always could be. There always could be more participation, but in light of certainly how the public sometimes attends these, so I was pleased to see as many as we did see actually. Also, since that first meeting, there's also a survey that's out. We've tried to, or the vendors have tried to get the survey information through social media, various social media aspects. There's a website. If you haven't visited the website, I can get you the link or information for that. If you haven't visited, please visit it. Also, if you haven't taken the survey, please certainly take the survey and encourage others to do as well. As of today, we've had 232 responses to the survey. That is a little lower than what I would like to see, obviously. Certainly, and we keep comparing, or at least talking with the vendors. We compared with what the participation levels were in during the strategic plan development. They got a little bit better response during that process, but the surveys will remain open until December 2nd. Have to cut it off at some point in time. We had a discussion last week about that regarding various discussions. I do sit in on a Zoom meeting, monthly Zoom meeting with the vendors. Mr. Hathaway, our county staff, Kelly's been present as well. I guess up until recently, Mr. Stoddard. So, so they've included me in those meetings, and it's just update information that, again, Todd Gordon or the other principal, Vlad Gavrilovich, I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly. Our next public informational meeting will be three, a minimum of three that the vendor will set up for the public. The next one we anticipate to be in the spring. And same thing for surveys. There'll be future surveys. The next surveys will probably focus more on specific land use and transportation issues or questions. We will also, there will be another meeting of the steering committee. We're trying to set up a date now. Looks like either December 19th or 20th. So they've got the doodle survey or doodle app out to see what people's preferences are. Other than that, any questions or any specifics that, like maybe?
Mr. Davis and Mr. Halfway, has there been any discussion as to a threshold that would like to be seen as far as the number of participation, either in person or on the survey, before we move forward? 1% just doesn't seem to cut the mustard, so to speak.
We've not had that conversation with our consultant, or they've not shared an ideal number or a goal with us. I believe for the strategic plan, we had about 1,300 surveys answered. But just this week, we've sent the flyers out to the Chamber of Commerce and other local groups. Hopefully, we can stir up some more participation. And we have some emails going out, too, by the end of this week. Those people that have signed up on our website to receive various notices, we're going to reach out by email to those individuals this week.
And the second question I kind of remember from our first steering meeting was there was a discussion brought up of maybe having there was the one main meeting there at the visitor center, but also have one or two satellite meetings in other locales of this county. Mm-hmm. Is that still in the thought process, or is that going to happen, or do we know?
At this point, we do not know. I mean, the consultant is committed to do a public meeting, and that can be several public meetings this spring. And spring was chosen because by that time they will have put together and gathered all the information received from the public meeting that we had previously and the surveys. And then in the spring, their goal is to kind of dial down, focus more on land use issues. As you're aware, the first meeting was kind of wide open. What do you think about the county, basically? But in the spring, we'll dial down. I think the steering committee will kind of guide that decision as to whether it will be multiple meetings or one, and that will be discussed, I'm sure, at our upcoming meeting in December. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't believe, I think it's my impression too that they weren't committed just to one type of meeting or the public meeting. So now I know that at one time the discussion was whether to do it within each magisterial district or region or section of the county. So I think Eastern Western or Eastern Central Western would probably be the best way to work it out, I would suggest. So.
Yeah. Mr. Davis, I know they haven't compiled the statistics on all the comments that they've received, but is there a general sense that there's been participation, they've gotten kind of equal participation across the board, or is it centered more in a couple districts where they may have to push more resources out to certain areas to get coverage?
I think it was more of discussion, like at least the Zoom meeting we had was more of I know we talked about mailers, because that, whether that would have an improved effect on getting people to do the surveys, I guess. But I don't know if other than that, I don't know if it's much.
I know from the public meeting that we had, because we also asked where you were from on that. We had a sign-in sheet. There was a heavy presence from that centralized area, Farms of New Kent community. It was located right there. But it was spread out from the very eastern portion of the county to the very western portion, north and south. I think our consultant was pleased with the mix, but there was definitely a heavy participation from that surrounding area.
Yeah. The short answer, I haven't seen the stats yet either, because then probably won't until after they close the survey. Yeah.
Had any initial, they had given you any initial offerings yet? But
First thing I was pleased to see, there was a couple people who drove from all the way from Baronsville there, so I was glad to see that.
Oh, yeah.
You were what?
And I was one, but I mean, there were others as well.
Yes.
Okay, good,
So,
good.
other than, we haven't had any meetings since the initial meeting, so I guess from this point forward, as we continue, if we have regular planning commission meetings, then certainly I can take those monthly meetings that we have, or Zoom meetings, updates that we get from with the vendor, and certainly present those as they happen. So, but basically, in a nutshell, is what it's been so far. So, I know it will be a long haul.
Yeah, it's still early, so,
Yeah.
but, yeah.
But I'm a stats person myself. I'm quite interested in seeing what's been compiled to date. So,
Yeah. Okay. Great.
is that anything else? Or,
Any other questions?
sorry, we went 3 minutes. Yeah. It'd been 3 minutes if we didn't ask questions.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. We'll move on to, Ms. Pearson, is there a Plan RVA?
Yes, I have a few things. They have a new office space that they're getting ready to move into. They should be in there by the week of December 5th. Well, they should be moving around November 28th, but the staff can start working on December 5th. And the new location is at 424 Hull Street, Suite 300. They're working on their branding still. They want a new logo and a website refresh, and some video opportunities they're working on. They just received a grant from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management for $385,000. And there was a special program about shared values in action, where Sherry Armstrong and Brian Anderson with Chamber RVA were introduced and provided an update on what the Community Foundation does, as well as a report on an action framework for equitable growth. They provided a debriefing the Shared Values in Action Summit held on September 30th. And I also have a list of their imperatives, their 5 imperatives for the upcoming 2023 year. And if anybody wants copies of them, I have them. Just the main overview, number 1 is to preserve their financial position. Number 2 is manage core operations. Number 3 is build relevance and demand for services. Number 4 is drive new initiatives. And number 5 is advance special priorities. And then there's more detail listed under each one of them. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Can you give Anne Marie a copy of that for the minutes? Just a quick question. You had mentioned that they got a grant for $385,000. What was that for?
Honestly, I'm not sure.
Okay. No, I was more curious than anything.
Yeah,
From the Office of Emergency Management.
right.
Yeah.
It's probably, shared coverage maybe for the localities, but she didn't go into great detail about
Okay.
it. But I can find out.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was more curious than anything. But. Okay. Do any of the commissioners have a report or anything of note?
Madam Chair, I have one thing which will lead into the staff report. It says, coming in 2 months, we'll be deciding on officers for this commission in January if we have a meeting. So I would encourage our commissioners to think about those people who would like to see in the various offices that we have for the planning commission, and maybe talk to that person that you would like to recommend. That's it.
Does that mean we can talk to you?
We can talk all you want.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I will, yeah, since you gave me a cue into this, the holiday potluck will be at 5:30 prior to our December meeting. So everybody think about what they're going to bring to that. And hopefully everybody can make it. And yeah.
Rodney, I think you would want to say that.
Oh, yes. The staff reports.
Thank you. Just a few things. First of all, some of your terms are expiring at the end of this year. Ask that you reach out to your supervisor and let him know of your interest to continue to serve or not continue to serve, as our Board of Supervisors are now beginning to think about many different appointments for the upcoming year. Also, it looks like we will have a meeting for December, so I'm glad we've decided to move forward with the potluck. I'm not sure what all will be on the agenda, but I will be before you with the presentation for the FY24 capital improvements plan. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hathaway. Well, we've come to the end of the schedule. The next scheduled meeting is Monday, December 19th, with a potluck at 5:30 and regular scheduled meeting to start at 6:30. Are there any other questions regarding the schedule? Hearing none, we'll adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn?
You do.
Thank you.
We'll make it official.
Wow, I think that's a record.
Mrs. Hopewell?
I like the initiative.
We travel.